Hola, I'm Gerson Borrero, and welcome to this edition of City and State TV. This morning, our guest doesn't need an introduction. Everybody knows Ray Kelly. Thank you, Commissioner, for agreeing to sit down with City and State TV. I know you missed the action. You got to miss the action. You were in the force for over, what was it, close 45, 47 years in New York NYPD. And before we get on to the matters of that are occupying national attention, certainly in terms of Ferguson and Missouri, and some of the things coming up here, there's a protest going over into Staten Island led by our friend Al Sharpton. I did an interview with two ex-young lords, Mickey Melendez and Pablo Guzman. You knew him as Yoruba when you were a sergeant, which I forgot all about, 45 years ago, in Harlem, 111th Street, Lexington Avenue, what they called the People's Church. They had taken it over. Yoruba told me on camera that you dealt with them really well. You never arrested them. But he said something that struck me. He said that you had the rapport, but that you also indicated that what you were getting from one police plaza or the shirts or your superiors was that they were communists, that they guys were bad. You never arrested them. Was that true what Yoruba said?
I think it was part of the environment. I wouldn't say that type of information was coming from a police headquarters, but it was sort of a commonly held opinion, even in the media, that the young lords were communists, that they were anarchists, and that they, in some way, shape, or form, were trying to copy some of the things that the Black Panthers did. That they wanted to get in the action too. And when you look closer at the organization, hey, they were boisterous, they were loud, they were very pushy, but they were trying to do good things. They were trying to do the right thing, and they didn't mind if a television camera was there to capture them doing it. Interesting that Felipe Luciano, Pablo Guzman, Juan Gonzalez, and others all went into the media.
They all went
and had pretty successful careers in the media. So they were focused on getting the message out, but they were not anarchists or communists, and that was sort of information that was out in some circles.
But Ray Kelly, then, as sergeant, you had the instinct as a person, as a man who came up through the ranks of the NYPD, to have that rapport. And I take you back to then, I explained that, but the point of departure is 1969 is where this happened. 45, 46 years have gone by. What has changed in policing from then that brings us to some of the things that we're seeing? And I take you, for example, the Eric Garner issue in Staten Island, the policing that Ray Kelly implemented during your tenure as commissioner, the things you did, the training, the fact that you brought in people. Just take me quickly, if you can, with some kind of what the decades, why has changed and how it's changed.
Well, there have been tremendous changes in policing. There have been changes in society. Police officers are smarter because they have a higher educational requirement. They're better trained. Technology has brought an awful lot to bear to give police more information, having it more effective. And that's one of the reasons you see why crime in the big picture has gone down significantly. Now, you talked about the certain events that happen. Policing is a contact sport, if you will.
Sure.
The New York City Police Department has about 23 million citizen contacts a year. That's an unbelievable number. And guess what? Some of those contacts are not going to go well. About 400,000 of them are arrests, 500,000 summonses, and contacts in a lot of different ways. So, if you look at the training, if you look at the quality of officers, and by a lot of different indicators, the department is much better now than certainly when I joined the department initially. We're staying away from the details of these specific events. These types of interactions, or some of the interactions, are going to be problematic. And when you look at the big picture, cops do a terrific job every day. But some of these things are going to happen. They're unfortunate, but if you just look at the numbers, they're almost inevitable.
The intel has been improved. There's different methods that the NYPD, certainly under your tenure as commissioner, it was seen how you operated. There's a lot of talk about broken windows, this or that, but the reality is that nothing can substitute a person on the street, an officer on the street, and the contact is that the human relation part, the human factor. The contact factor is still, the Ray Kelly that patrolled the streets of Harlem, for example, is that still real? Is it a component that's missing currently here? Because, for example, what happened with Eric Garner, may he rest in peace, from the appearance of the video, we don't have all the information, and what's been reported, medical examiners report the use of the choke after NYPD cops that take so much to train after loosies, after persons selling loose cigarettes. I didn't understand that. Is it?
Well, you have a lot of issues here. I think what you're implying is that, and a lot of people have this notion that somehow foot patrol was, the cop on the beat was a much more effective way to police. Well, the reality is that we're policing much more effectively now, using technology, using cars, and that sort of thing. In the 60s and 70s, crime was rampant in New York City, no question about it. And we have a lot of that interaction now that still goes on, depending on what unit cops work at. So it's not this sort of distance that a lot of people portray. And there was no magic with a cop on the beat. But it'd be, even if you wanted to do it now, it'd be way too expensive to do it. It costs about almost $150,000 to put a cop on the street. That's a lot of money. So if you're going to greatly expand, and you're going to have a lot of
This includes the officer's salary, or
the salary and equipment and
right,
pension payments,
training.
and that's just an average. It costs more
Okay,
for some. So it'd be prohibitively expensive to, like, say, go back to foot patrol. But I question the efficacy and the wisdom of it. But some people believe that was, that.
And you're talking as a person who actually did it, the foot patrol.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, it was a much better time. Right. It wasn't. Crime was rampant in the city, and it was rampant in East Harlem in those days that we're talking about. As far as these specific instances, I'm going to stay away from it,
right,
because
I understand.
the process is going forward, and it wouldn't be fair to me to comment.
Well, let me ask you then about the alleged retraining, that these officers have a retraining. I'm not asking, there's been comments, public statements, which I'm sure that you've read and you've haven't commented on. In general, for example, I asked the DCPI for the training manual, which I know you had, because I know that that it existed. They haven't sent me that training manual, as a matter of fact, for a column that I did for City and State. Is there really a flaw in the actual training that you oversaw for 11 years? It's been alleged that...
There's only, first of all, there's a lot of issues here. There's only so much training you can do, because if you train, there's an opportunity cost where people are not enforcing the law or doing their regular job. The training in the police academy is, in my judgment, certainly adequate in terms of physical holds, physical restraints. As a matter of fact, even in, well, I'm going to stay away from that, but there's lots of things that are taught in the police academy that a police officer absorbs, but it would be a misconception to think that police are out every day wrestling with people in the street. They don't have that sort of physical contact. So you may not have a situation where you're physically involved with somebody for a month. And the notion that somehow you're going to use jujitsu or some sort of magic formula to do it, it just doesn't work. There's stressful situations for the police officers as well. If somebody's grabbing your shirt, or, 2 o'clock in the morning, a tussle, it's not a Marcus of Queensberry type situation. So the notion that somehow there is a sort of magic hold or takedown that hasn't been used in the biggest police department in the country is, I don't think it's so. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of change is going to take place. But I can tell you from my own experience, yes, many years ago, that it's not a common occurrence, but when it does happen, it's it's very chaotic, and some of your training comes back to you, and some of it doesn't, unless you're training every day, in some sort of martial arts environment.
A lot of the officers, I'm sorry, Commissioner, but a lot of the officers that are currently on the streets, they were under your command, right? And so they were trained a certain way. I do know that what you did with new police officers that were cadets, I know that because you invited me to several, some you called us critics, some critics, that you actually got into the Apollo Theater to speak to these officers in a very upfront way, no holds bar about what the encounters with that. So you had journalists, you had activists, you had all kinds of people.
That was stopped, by the way.
Why? Because it was very effective.
You're asking me, I don't know.
I know, but you did that, and you risked the chance. You invited, for example, people, Reverend Daughtry, Al Sharpton, but you also invited Spike Lee. You had other bishops and ministers. You invited Errol Lewis was the moderator. I came in also as a critic. You had Margarita Lopez. You had all kinds of people coming in that you have criticized openly the police. That was effective, I felt, because you actually you were criticized openly. So, and that was you found that good. Why should it be instituted? It should be obligatory in terms of that.
Well, I don't know why it was ended, but I thought it was effective as well. We wanted to give young recruits, first of all, they started their day, it was a week of what we call total immersion training, exposure to the community and community issues. They started the day with lining up in front of the state office building in Harlem on 125th Street, and many as 1,000 police officers would show up in uniform. Very impressive. We have them go to the Apollo Theater, and we would say, we want you to hear the unvarnished opinions of opinion formers in the community, to let you know what their view is of police community relations, their own experiences, and what they think can be done to improve them, to make them better. And as you know, you were there. People spoke very directly to the recruits. And then they went out to lunch in the community. They came back, and for the rest of the week, they had community leaders, religious leaders, police executives talk to them. They did role playing about somebody walking into a police station, which we know can feel very, very hostile. You can feel very intimidated just walking in the door of a police station. So we had some of those role plays. We had a transgender person in some of these role plays. I thought it was very effective.
It was good for both sides. I take you from that to a situation, and I want to get quickly here without overstepping the time factor. Again, there was a recent meeting in which the current mayor invited the police commissioner and a person, who was not shy about publicity or his opinion, in the person of Al Sharpton. Do you think that was proper to do that, to expose him? Because I know you controlled the situation when you invited us in. Do you think that would you have sat in the midst of this mess?
Well, I'm going to only say what the Bloomberg administration did in a similar situation. After the Sean Bell incident, we met with Reverend Sharpton and a group of clergy. We brought them into City Hall. We had a roundtable discussion. Then Reverend Sharpton left and made a statement on the steps of City Hall. No press was allowed into the meeting. And we then continued on. He went out, made a statement, whatever he was going to say, whatever he did say. And I thought that was appropriate, the way we handled that meeting.
Okay, Staten Island, what should be the caution on Sunday?
Well, hopefully everybody is peaceful, and they certainly have a right to demonstrate. I would hope that it's done with care and common sense, and understand that the legal proceedings have a long way to go. So let's see what happens, as the legal process goes forward.
Thank you for your insights. Unique from Ray Kelly for City and State TV. I'm Gerson Borrero. Good luck, Commissioner.